Hey guys, welcome to PP Garage, and today we're pressing some bushings into some B6 control arms. And basically this is a cost saving measure. If you don't have enough money to go out and buy yourself a set of control arms that are like, what, 150 bucks for a full set? 150 bucks for a full set. So if you want to save a few bucks, you can go ahead and buy some nice bushings like this, and you can press them in yourself. All you need is a $600 press and all of your control arms. So you can, from the junkyard or whatever, grab some control arms and pay probably 100 bucks in bushing, and then all it takes is about 16 hours of labor, maybe something about that, and you're saving all kinds of money. So let's have a look. Okay guys, all jokes aside, the reason you might want to do this job this way is because by purchasing the bushings separately from the control arms, or reusing your old control arms with new bushings, you can buy a much high quality set of bushings for less money than a cheap set of bushings and arms that are all assembled already. So you just grab your old arms and you can press those bushings out. Now it's a pretty straightforward job if you've ever used a hydraulic press. And there were a couple of little things that we got hung up on while we were doing this job, so we'll talk about those in a minute. But basically all you're doing is you're going to use your press and your various stack of different sized collars and whatever you need to press out the old bushings, and then come in and press your new bushing right back in. Seems pretty simple, and it is a pretty simple job. Doesn't take that much effort. You can see here, Blake's just pulling one of the old bushings out, and here's our control arm with no bushing in it. Real easy stuff, and then right back in with the new bushing. And like I say, pretty easy job. You need a couple of sets of, like I say, collars, different sized blocks and stuff to support your arms, but they go in quite easily. Now, something that did trip us up while we were doing this is we pressed all the old bushings out without measuring the height that the bushing was pressed into the arm, like top and bottom here. So what we ended up doing is we actually kind of just eyeballed, and we don't think it's super critical that it be perfect, but you may want to get in there with a caliper or something and just measure your heights before you press the bushings out, so that when you put the new ones in, you get the correct heights. Like I said, we just kind of eyeballed it, and all the bushings seem to be pretty much like 50-50, sticking out on either side of the control arm when they're pressed in. And here's our finished product with us pressing them in to pretty much what we think is the right height. So one thing you want to pay attention to here is the new bushings that you're putting in. They have a couple of slots in them, and you want to make a note of which way those slots are facing when you go to press them out, so that you don't get confused. And basically you don't want to just press them out and not have any idea like we did, and try to guess which way those slots face when you go to put that bushing back in. So here's our couple of more bushings that we took out. You can see the poor condition that they were in, and this is why we're replacing them. See the old one on the bottom and the new one on the top there. And here we're replacing the bushing for the strut, where the strut attaches to the lower control arm. Now the thing that caught us out on this, when we went to push the new bushing in, there's our old one, and when we went to send the new one in, we ran into this issue here. Not very pretty. So it turns out the holes that are in the control arms that the bushings press into, some of the holes actually were tapered in the control arm. So the aluminum in the control arm actually had a slight taper to it, and which meant that it had sort of like a loose side and a tight side if you're pushing the bushing in. Also, the bushings themselves have a chamfer on one side of the bushing and not on the other. Now, I don't know if it's all brands that are like that, but the ones we had a chamfered side and a not chamfered side. So here, even though we put the chamfered side in first, we put it in through the wrong side of the control arm. So the smaller end of the hole was facing the wall of the bushing, and as the bushing went in, it just peeled some of the material off right there. And it does look like a mess, and you can see because it was hanging up and took a lot more force to get it in, it's really ugly. But Blake did run this, and the control arm was totally fine, the bushing was fine. Here's a good one for comparison. The second one we did, much cleaner. Now the most important part of your control arm job here is when you go to reinstall your control arms, to make sure that when you tighten down the bolts that are holding all those bushings, that the car's sitting on its weight as if it were sitting in your driveway, essentially, so that the bushings are rotated into the correct position before you tighten that bolt down. And if you don't do that, what'll happen, those rubber bushings will just tear right out and you'll be having to do control arm bushings again right away. So make sure you do that, have that bolted up in the proper sequence, and you'll have no issues. So thanks a lot for watching, guys, and hopefully we'll stick around and we'll see you watching more of our videos. Have a good one.
Would literally think you're playing an instrument. That's the that one sounds better. I like that.
It does sound weird.
You grab second gear, now it's a third. Oh, you locked up. That's an OAE.